Welcome to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for joining us. Well, in the last few years, several law enforcement agencies all around the country have piloted programs that put body cameras on patrol officers. Although it's still too soon for definitive evidence, many of the reports show a drop in citizen complaints and police use of force. So, is this something we'd benefit from here in Northern Nevada? Sparks Police Chief Brian Allen is here with us to discuss that. Chief, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we don't have body cameras on any of our local law enforcement, right?
As of right now, we do not have at Sparks PD any cameras. I'm not sure if Reno is piloting or Washington County Sheriff's Office is piloting a program.
Now, you guys do cameras on the cars, though, correct?
Yes. After this year, our entire patrol fleet should have a in-dash car camera system in place.
It's a similar idea, doing something on the car, like doing it, on the body, but some definite differences. Where do you stand in terms of cameras on the body?
I think overall you're going to see law enforcement going in that direction. So I support it in the long run as long as it is done properly, right, and we take a measured approach while we implement the program.
How big would you say the need is to have something like this that can kind of clarify the relationship between law enforcement and citizens?
It really comes down to what your citizens want and the amount of trust and how much they believe what you're telling them in your own individual communities. We haven't had the push from our community to drive a mandatory, quick-paced implementation of a body-worn camera system. So that level of trust in our community is still there where excuse me, we're moving forward in that direction because that's the direction law enforcement is going to be going, but we are doing that measured approach.
Kind of stepping away from it a little bit, how would you characterize the level of trust between citizens and law enforcement in this area? I know it does vary a lot from area to area.
In this area, we have a great amount of community trust with our local departments. Between the Reno Police Department, Washington County Sheriff's Office, school police, even our federal partners. With Chief Pitts over at Reno PD, we have meetings quite regularly with our minority groups and community leaders to discuss issues that are going on in law enforcement.
Okay, so body cameras have a lot of reported benefits that are pretty interesting. A lot of the reports say it reduces the number of citizen complaints, reduces the amount of police use of force. Does that make logical sense to you? I mean,
absolutely, it makes logical sense because when you're being videotaped, generally speaking, you behave in a more professional or a better manner if you're the citizen. So it can alter people's behavior just simply knowing that they're being videotaped.
What about the complaints? I mean, do you think it's that there's a change in behavior, or do you think it's just a reduction in frivolous complaints?
I believe it's a reduction in frivolous complaints. Even those complaints that we just have audio tape on, at times when the person comes in to complain, you play or tell them that you have an audio tape of the incident and the citizen decides they just want to leave. A recent study that was done by the International Association of Chiefs of Police showed that with body-worn cameras, 93% of the time, the officer was cleared of charges of wrongdoing rather than being sustained or basically found guilty of inappropriate behavior.
Do you get a lot of complaints?
Not generally speaking. We get 10 to 12 ones that we give to our internal affairs section every year from outside in the Citizens Court. Yeah.
So what do you hear from your officers? Is this something that they are looking forward to, something they'd like to have?
It's cautious. How it's implemented, why it's implemented, what the purpose is behind the implementation. Even as we went into the car camera system, once the officers have seen the value of the evidence collection and the fact that they have been cleared on several of these citizen complaints, it actually builds trust with those officers in taking and putting on a body-worn camera.
Now, are there safety concerns for those officers? I think I read about concerns about where they're worn and putting undue stress on certain parts of the body or anything like that.
The position of the camera is always going to be an issue because if you put it in the center of the chest, in the center of the body, if there is a deadly force incident when someone draws their handgun, that's typically where the hands are located, so you get a great shot of the back of someone's hands and you really don't see what is going on. So they do make a variety of different cameras, some that mount on lapels, some that mount on the pockets, and even one company produces one that can clip to a pair of glasses.
Yeah.
And you wear it so where your head goes, the video camera actually goes itself.
Right. There are some concerns though. I mean, obvious concerns, not just for the officer's privacy, but for the citizen's privacy. How do you handle videotaping things, sensitive information that a lot of people wouldn't want out in the public?
That's the biggest concern that I have currently is just that, is what are we doing with the videotapes when we go into somebody's house and they're describing the victim of being a victim of a crime, especially a violent or sexually based crime or child abuse or those types of things. And now we have people having the Freedom of Information requests under NRS 179 or 239. And then what are we doing with the videos, and how do we protect our victims from groups that are just using that video to put it out on YouTube, other media sources, and how do we truly protect our victims, and what about our victim rights?
Is there a solution to that?
Well, right now, currently, there's 15 other states that are looking at this very measure in their state legislations, trying to be able to find that balance between the public's desire to have the transparency and accountability on law enforcement while still protecting those victim rights, especially, like I said, those of violent and victim crimes in children.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concern not just for victims too. For example, I mean, what if police come to your home, maybe a crime hasn't been committed, but is the camera rolling and they're getting video of inside of your home? Is that, I mean, I know a lot of people who wouldn't want that happening.
Right, and that's those policies and procedures that we have to develop on when we can and when we should or shouldn't tape inside someone's residence, and delineating those things clearly. We have to still give the officers the ability to be able to turn the camera off under proper and certain circumstances to protect our citizenry. That's why we have a secret witness program, so someone can report a crime anonymously and not feel threatened by the person they're reporting the crime against. You can only imagine that if you wanted to call in a complaint against your neighbor, and then the neighbor gets a copy of the video and listens and watches everything that you have said about them,
right,
what kind of retaliation and kind of problems that could create as well.
Is it one of those situations where the technology is kind of evolving faster than the policy?
Absolutely. With technology and the size of the camera, the types of cameras, this is not as easy as just strapping on a GoPro and calling it good. We have retention cycles set by NRS. We have storage and data costs that you're talking terabytes of data storage for long periods of time until cases are properly adjudicated through the court system. And then how do we get rid of all that data?
Yeah, gosh, data storage is a huge element of this. And where's that money going to come from? Because that's expensive.
As of right now, in the state BDRs and the bills that are out there, this is an unfunded mandate on the state to local government. So if we have to spend $50,000 on a server to support this, that's $50,000 that we can't put towards an employee, an officer responding to a call for service, or towards another program within the city.
And this isn't really a time when most of our local agencies can afford to lose any staffing. I know most of them are pretty understaffed.
And this actually would probably create additional staffing needs when you're talking about the redaction of information. And to my knowledge, based on the research I've done, someone would have to go frame by frame by frame to redact different images from within those videos. So we're going to have to actually create positions and have people with that type of technology within the police department just to handle the request for this type of video.
Yeah, really a lot of concerns. Even things like, I mean, when can they switch it off? Say the officer needs to use the restroom. That's not something that we need to be recording. Right. But if you give them the jurisdiction over the on-off switch, then that adds a whole implication of, well, could they switch it on and off if they don't want something being recorded?
Absolutely. And so, under most policies, under most model policies, either through the International Association of Chiefs of Police or the Police Executive Research Forum, all give that ability. And general patrol duties would not be those that are generally being taped all the time. So as you're responding to a call for service, you'd be required to turn the camera on. When you exit your patrol car for a law enforcement-based activity, you would be required to turn it on to make contact with citizenry. To use the restroom, to go get a cup of coffee late at night when you're getting a little tired, all those things wouldn't require to be photoed.
Do you have to notify people that they're being recorded?
Not currently under state law. Nevada is not one of those two-party consent states, so that we could be able to videotape just with the officer as long as we have a lawful reason for being where we are.
So how likely would you say that this is going to come to our area, and in how much time? What would the timeline be?
That a lot depends on our state legislation. There's at least 3 different bills out there that I've seen and reviewed that are mandating it. Some have very specific parameters, counties over 100,000, which would limit it to Washoe and Clark County only, and others are for all law enforcement within the state. So it depends on what direction the state takes in the legislation. But even if they don't take steps, this legislation, and if we do trial periods, pilot programs, I would say within 5 years, you will see most law enforcement agencies wearing cameras. They are that beneficial. We just need to make sure that we do it with a measured approach and keep up with the technology and the rights of citizens.
Absolutely. Really, really interesting stuff. Amazing to watch how technology changes how we all do our jobs.
Absolutely.
But overall, I mean, you think despite all the concerns, it's a positive step?
Absolutely. I really do. I mean, when you come down to it, it's going to create a safer environment for our officers to work. And I believe that the reason why there's less use of force is because people are behaving better and differently, so that's not making or forcing the officers to use the force. Are we still going to have use of force incidents? Yes, we still have that element of society that doesn't want to go to jail, that doesn't want to get apprehended, that will take whatever steps necessary to escape or to avoid apprehension. But generally speaking, when people know they're being videotaped, they're going to be behaving better, which is going to be safer for our officers.
Absolutely. Anything that makes people behave better is a good thing overall. All right, Chief, thank you so much for coming on the show. I sure appreciate your time. Coming up on Face the State, whether it's heating, cooling, or lighting, we are at the mercy of our power bills. But one local company has an idea to change all of that. We will take a tour of the new EnviroHaven home right after the break.